Is Austin Matthews appreciated enough by his fellow NHLers? We'll discuss that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, the daily Maple Leafs centered podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Actually use Game Time. I went to the Jays game with a fellow colleague of mine on Wednesday. Things were going swimmingly up until extras when Tim Meza decided to just completely blow up on us. And what seemed like a promising game turned out to be a blowout after giving up a 5 spot in extras. Hopefully that does not happen for the Maple Leafs tonight against the New Jersey Devils. Hopefully they can complete the sweep. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a sweep, but a sweep of the home and home series here in the back-to-back against the Devils. They beat Jersey in their own building the other night, 5-2, and they come back to Toronto for a game tonight, and it's game 79. Yes, game 79 of 82 for the Maple Leafs. And I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine while we were sitting there watching the Jays game, just going back and forth if we think Austin is going to get to 70. And I think he's got a really good chance to get there, don't get me wrong. But I think if he can get himself a multi-goal game here tonight against the New Jersey Devils, that really would put him in a prime position to reach 70.
Yeah, definitely. And what kills me is, and this conversation kind of came up actually with some people I talked to after the game last night, was why you have Auston Matthews chasing 70.
Oh, you're talking about the empty netter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we brought that up like for a second, but
yeah, like what's going on here? Like, I said he's actually not only just to get him out because he gets a chance to go for an empty netter, but
he was out there for like the first little bit with the empty net, and then a whistle and a face off, and then he came off the ice. Right? I'm pretty sure he was out there for like
maybe for just a little bit, but like Sheldon Keefe, we know that in certain situations he sticks to his guys, gets them out there. But there was a point in time where the penalty kill was so brutal, they couldn't defend it was actually against Edmonton where they had that huge lead. Oilers started to creep back in, especially late in the game when they were, I think it was they pulled the goalie. They had also a power play at the same time. Then Keefe decides, I got to use Auston Matthews here, shorthanded. And guess what? Auston Matthews, being a pretty decent defender and guy responsible in his own zone, actually did the right thing. And I don't remember if he scored in the empty netter in that game. I don't remember if it was that game. But it's like that. I understand that Auston Matthews has done this without needing the goalies, but Wayne Gretzky got a record by scoring into an empty net. It doesn't take away the magic that much if he scores it into an empty net.
No, obviously not.
Let him have some opportunities without a freaking goalie in the net, Sheldon.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Yes, when Bertuzzi scored the empty netter, did my first thought go to, darn, I wish that was Auston Matthews? Yeah, of course, because then that would have just, put him one step closer to 70. For sure. I think obviously the Leafs will tell you that if everything was perfect, then they would have had Austin out there. But at the same time, they don't want to overwork the guy. If he was just out there for like a 40-second shift, killing off a 6-on-5, well, that's your 40 seconds. He had 40 seconds to score. It's time for you to come off so we don't overwork you, right? His success in the playoffs is much more important than the 40 goal or the 70 goal chase. So from that perspective, I do understand why Sheldon Keefe did it. But I don't know, it's not something that I think we need to harp on here, uh, the day after the game as well. That being said, like, there's an opportunity tonight to just go, and you don't need the empty nets. Austin has shown that he's been able to score against goaltenders. 64 of the 66 goals have been against goaltenders. So he doesn't need an empty net to put pucks in the back of the net. And tonight, I mean, this is a team that he has absolutely torched throughout his career. He's got 15 goals in 16 games against the New Jersey Devils throughout his career. So there's an opportunity for him to come in and snipe a couple, maybe get one on the power play as well. Like that PK hasn't been great over there, and I know that they didn't allow a power play goal the other night against Toronto, but I think coming back home, maybe that gives Austin a little bit more juice. You had some guys take nights off. Perhaps we see some of those players come back into the game, so you get a little bit more fresh legs. They did not practice on Wednesday, so they should be relatively fresh. Samsonov didn't even travel. I assume he'll be in the net for this game against New Jersey. So, I'm looking forward to it. I think this could be kind of a point night for the Maple Leafs. And for Auston Matthews' sake, I hope that he ends up being the biggest benefactor of a point night in terms of scoring multiple goals, because I think he might need one multi-goal game to get himself to 70.
Yeah, I mean, these are the opportunities, right? Like the Leafs end the season with back-to-back against Tampa and Florida. Those are not easy games.
No.
This is where this is like Auston Matthews' opportunity to get as close as he can. And we know that, he's been scoring a goal per game over the last 6. A multi-goal game would certainly give you a little more certainty that this is going to happen.
Yeah, or else, like, he literally will end up going the last 10 games with like a goal a game, like a 10-game scoring streak, which he's never done before, right? Has he scored 10 goals in a 10-game stretch? Yeah, he's done that many times. But to score 10 games in a row is something that he has not done in his career, and that'd be quite wild. Not a lot of people have been able to do that. And at this point, that's what we're asking of Auston Matthews now in order to get to 70, unless he gets a multi-goal game to kind of take off the burden, allows him to have one night where he doesn't score. But yeah, so we'll see. I think tonight, though, I over on FanDuel, I think I might place down a little sprinkle on a 2+ goal night from Auston Matthews. I think tonight could be a chance for him to score twice and help the Leafs get another win here against the Devils and get 2 more points up on the board and kind of inch themselves closer to Florida once again. They win tonight against the Devils. They're only 1 point back of Florida, and there's a game still to be had between those two, to kind of finish things off on the final night of the season, or second last night of the season, but it's Florida's final game of the year. So, that we're coming down to it where each of these games are meaningful. Each and every point are meaningful. So we'll see how things go. I'm curious if you think we'll see some lineup changes again, like the guys who are out. Do they go right back into the lineup? Did anybody maybe keep themselves for one more game, like keep themselves in the lineup for another game based on their play? Like, I guess the only guy who I'm really looking at with that question is Nick Robertson. Like, is he someone who maybe sticks in for another game after scoring a goal there on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Noah Gregor sticking in this lineup.
Yeah,
really. So that's an easy in and out. I do think you got to. Nick Robertson scored in the last game. I didn't think he looked bad. I don't see why he should come out of the lineup, but at the same time, every time we think he's
it's not that.
In the lineup,
I don't think it has anything to do with that. It's okay if you keep Robertson in the lineup, one of Connor Dewar, Ryan Reeves has to stay out. Yeah. So it's not. Does Robertson deserve to be in the lineup? Does Robertson deserve to be in the lineup over Dewar and over Reeves, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the conversation that we have to get into now. And it's a good problem to have if you're Sheldon Keefe, right? If you have 13 forwards who deserve to be in the lineup, unfortunately, one guy's going to be on the outside looking in. It's been Robertson as of late. The other night, it was obviously Dewar and Reeves who are on the outside looking in because Sheldon wanted to get some other guys fresh and worked into a game because they haven't played in a little bit. But is he going to do it for a second game in a row? That I'm not too sure. That said, like you were mentioning, like Robertson didn't do anything to suggest he should be taken out of the lineup, but did he do enough to continue to displace a Dewar or a Reeves?
That's always the thing with, like, if he's not scoring, what else is he doing?
Right. At least Dewar and Reeves bring other elements, right?
Yeah, especially Dewar. Like, no one brings what Ryan Reeves brings, so it's
Right.
almost like you have to put Dewar as kind of like the side by side, and Sheldon Keefe is looking for guys who can play on the PK, and unfortunately, Dick Robertson does not play on the PK, so that's where Connor Dewar has the advantage over. Now, I guess with Mitch Marner back, Dewar doesn't necessarily become the top guy on the PK anymore, like he was when Marner was out. But at the same time,
I mean,
you do want those options.
they still filter out. Like
Yeah,
they the reason why they've had a lot of success, like they short shifts. They keep them short, right? So they do a lot of changing in and out with their lineup or with their forward pairings, I guess we'll call them, throughout a penalty kill. So although Dewar may not be on like the top unit, it's not too long after the second unit gets to go out there, right? It's not like the power play where they take up a minute 40 of the power play. You do not want your guys, your first penalty kill unit out there for a minute 40. You do not want that at all. So having a guy who feel comfortable with, that's really has been a great penalty killer for you on PK2, I think is definitely a good thing to have as well. So that'll kind of be the only lineup adjustment that I'm looking for, whether or not Robertson stays in or not, and which Dewar or Reeves would it be for if he does. Outside of that, I think we see kind of a similar lineup. Labushkin, I guess, will probably go back in for Connor Timmins as well. I guess if we're having that conversation. And then I think either Samsonov should get the start, but there was no practice on Wednesday, so we didn't really get to see what the lineup would be or any line projections. So something to kind of keep an eye on Twitter if you'd like to see kind of what might happen in morning skate. All right. So yeah, game tonight, 7:00 down at Scotia Bank Arena, wraps things up between the Leafs and Devils on the season, and that'll be what, their third game against each other this
yeah.
season. Third game, yeah. So it's the rubber match, technically, the rubber match between these two teams. So I expect a big win for Toronto. We'll see what happens. On the other side, Dave, the NHLPA player poll has been released. Auston Matthews snubbed in multiple categories. We'll talk about it on the other side. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match on Indeed are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to US Indeed data. And with Indeed matching, as soon as you sponsor, you can match as soon as you sponsor post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Boom. It's a hiring at warp speed. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor job and will match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. So join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows that when you're growing your business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. So that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. This is Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We're a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast here. You can find our shows anywhere you get your podcast at, audio wise, and also up on YouTube. We've got new episodes dropping every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So subscribe, hit the notification bell as well if you'd like, and be alerted when we drop those new episodes. And we are still on our road to 5K subscribers. Once we get to 5K, we'll be doing a giveaway for a Leafs jersey. It's not just any Leafs jersey. I think we finally solidified what kind of jersey we are going to be getting, Dave.
Well, I mean, considering it's a historic season for one, number 34, it's only fair that we do an Auston Matthews jersey giveaway.
Yeah, so we'll be giving away an Auston Matthews jersey to one of our lucky subscribers. So if you haven't done it yet, make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Leafs podcast. And we'll be doing that once we get to 5K. Less than 100 subscribers from that. From you talk about him hitting a historic feat. How about our plateau? 5K subscribers, not too shabby, huh, Dave? All right. So we'll also get into this Arizona Coyotes situation where it seems like it may be going very south for the Yotes, and south metaphorically, but north literally, I suppose, if we're talking about geography. We'll get into that in a moment, but I want to talk a little bit about the NHLPA player poll. It's something that we always look forward to, or I know I do. I guess I won't put words in your mouth, but I'm pretty sure you do as well. Most hockey fans do look forward to this poll being dropped every year. It's the player poll that all of the players in the NHL, they vote on specific things like best passer, best player. If you had one goalie you wanted in a game, who would it be? One player you could take to lead you in a one game win it all situation. Who would you take? Best face-off man, best skater, best defensive forward, best of everything, right? And it's getting the input from your peers around the NHL. So not just media plugs like you and I, Dave. It's the actual players who play the game who are voting on these. So it's always a lot of fun to kind of see how the guys who are playing view other guys, right? Other players. But this year, it seemed to me like our guy, Auston Matthews, who's on the verge of 70 goals, got snubbed multiple times in the voting this year. What's up with that?
Yeah, again, just like you said, I look forward to the poll every year because it's you get a good sense of what the players think about certain parts of the game, and I always care a little more about the off ice stuff or different like things other than just like player stats because some of it gets a little predictable. They kind of threw me through a loop this year because Auston Matthews, I had to do a search on the page to make sure I wasn't missing him.
Yeah. The highest he ranked in terms of where he was voted amongst his peers for the various different things that were votable. The highest he ranked was third for best dressed. Like that was the best he got from his team, was third for best dressed, right there behind his own teammate William Nylander, who came in second. David Pastrnak came in 15th. I will say Pasta, he is a very well dressed human, so I'm not too upset about that. So is Willie Stiles and Auston Matthews. Patrick Laine, surprised didn't get any love here for best dressed. He's someone who likes to mix it up with the suits and the glasses and the hats, and I'm surprised he didn't get much love. Maybe because he's been off the beaten path a little bit. But yeah, Auston Matthews, that was the best he did in the player poll, was best dressed. He got the bronze medal. Like that's just a slap in the face to Auston Matthews. I think the one that bugged me the most is if you want to go pull it back up and go up to the top where it's I believe the question is, if you need to win one game, who is the forward you would want on your team? And yes, Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby. Sure, I have no issues with those being number one and number two. I only have an issue with Nathan McKinnon being number three. You can make the argument about Kucherov, but you're telling me that more players in the NHL thought that Artemi Panarin would be a better pick in a one and done winner take all game than Auston Matthews? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I was flabbergasted by that. Now, I'm gonna make one thing clear about this because I had a debate with this with my colleagues today.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the players didn't vote for him, because we're only seeing the top 5 of the votes.
Yes.
That's the issue there. The issue, he probably got votes. He just didn't get enough votes to get into the top 5, and I'm like,
which
what
is
are we
still
doing here?
egregious. Like that it doesn't
Yes.
matter. It's still very egregious. The fact that more people in the NHL voted Artemi Panarin as a player they'd rather have on their team leading the way in a winner take all scenario. Like, yeah, the Breadman's a terrific player and he's having an amazing season. And he's like a perennial 100-point guy. But you're going to sit here and tell me that he's better than Matthews? Like, Matthews is a 100-point, 60-goal Selke contender. Where the
65.
hell?
Actually, 66.
Yes, right now. But like I'm saying, on a perennial basis, like the guy you can pencil him in for 60 goals, 100 points, and a Selke worthy season defensively. Where the hell are you going to find that from anyone else in the NHL? And I do wonder how much of it was looked and they were like, no playoff success. But like Panarin hasn't really had any success either. All of Chicago's success came before Panarin got there.
Yeah,
the Rangers haven't made a run since Panarin got there. The Blue Jackets didn't do anything with Artemi Panarin. Like that's the only one that kind of bugged me. Now I'm sure, again, we only were given the top 5. I'm sure Matthews came in at 6 and might even be close. But still, the fact that anybody outside of Tampa Bay, we'll say, or outside of New York, voted Panarin over Matthews is absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and look, Connor McDavid deserves to be number 1.
Sure.
That's an overwhelming number though for Connor McDavid. Like, that takes away from seeing other guys get up there. That's more of what I'm saying. Like, there were some categories where McDavid increased by 8% of the vote.
What I love is there was 25% of other, technically, of a combination of guys who got
25.24%.
Yeah, and there was a total of 622 votes. Like, not everybody voted, obviously. That's actually a very low number when you think about the amount of NHLers that are there. Actually, there's what, 20, 31 times 20, we'll say 25 probably. 32, sorry, times 25. Yeah, so out of approximately 800 players who probably were able to vote here for guys who have played in the NHL this year, 622 of them voted. And somehow, these were the results that we got. The other one that I thought, would have maybe he would have seen some more love, or maybe, some other Maple Leafs would have seen more love. But certainly when I look at who's the most complete player, again, you're talking about Auston Matthews, who's the best goal scorer in the world, and you're consistently hearing his teammates and guys like Jake McCabe come out and say, this dude deserves Selke votes. Like, you had Nico Hischier, who is a Selke candidate himself, come out and say, yeah, this guy's unbelievable in his own zone. He's probably going to, make a run at the Selke every year. How the hell can you be a Selke candidate, a 70-goal scorer, and not be considered a top 5 two-way player in the game?
I again, this is another one where I was shaking my head. Look, when I think of Connor McDavid, I think of his elite offensive play. I don't really talk a lot about Connor McDavid's defensive ability. He's not even a top face-off guy. Matthews is incredible on the draw. Mm-hmm. To me, Sidney Crosby fits the bill of complete player.
100%. He might be the most complete player to ever play. I'll give you that.
Yeah, Barkov, absolutely. He could do it on both ends.
Yeah.
Anze Kopitar, I remember. I mean, most people remember that was the comp for Auston Matthews when he entered the league.
Here's my thing with Kopitar. Kopitar, very elite defensively. But offensively, he's not really in that conversation of the top offensive players every year. So I almost feel like the votes here definitely kind of leaned more towards like Selke candidates, like guys who are really good defensively, as opposed to like two-way guys. Because you look at the last like 5-6 years, like since his age 31 season, which was 2018, 2019. Like Kopitar, 60 points, 52 points, 50 points, 67, 74. This year he's got 68, which good numbers, but not spectacular. Like you've got other Selke candidates, touching up on 100. That's not worthy of being considered a better two-way player. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little biased, but I think maybe there's a little anti-Toronto bias when it comes to these player polls, if you ask me.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, we try not to make it seem like that, but it's hard to argue that. Like, I don't. I'm trying to remember what last year was like for Matthews. I feel like Matthews would have done better.
Well, 2 years ago, I think he did really well, right? Like the year he
The
did
year
win
that he won and
the
won
Hart, the
the
Lindsay.
yeah.
Yeah. Last year was, the 40-goal season was a bit of a down year. So probably not. But 2 years ago, I think he did really well.
They also changed the wording on some of the questions too. Like
Yeah.
last year, it was in a must-win game. Which four do you think will be the most impactful? Which actually, Auston Matthews was very low on that last year. So,
again, I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of playoff success for that too.
Yeah, like again, McDavid got the same thing. I don't know. I feel like maybe people look at McDavid and just feel like he has to be everywhere. You have to get a McDavid everywhere because that's
He's the best player. Like if you look
He
at
is,
every
1000%.
Like, if you look at most skill sets individually, like, he's right up there, if not the top guy on most of those. Like, for him, he's second in playmaking as well, behind Kucherov. Like, those two are like, the two best playmakers in the league. Mitch Marner got a little bit of love there, though. I will say that.
Yep.
For best playmaker, he came in ranked
5.
5th with 5% of the vote. But that was really it in terms of Maple Leafs getting themselves any love here in the NHL PA player poll. I don't know. To me, I think Matthews wasn't appreciated enough by his peers, which probably lends me to think that he doesn't stand a chance in hell at winning the Ted Lindsay either, which is voted upon by your peers.
I mean, we're just give it to Connor McDavid already.
Like, really? Like, that's kind of what I'm getting here.
Yeah,
kind of either McDavid, maybe Kucherov. I don't know.
I would say
McKinnon,
McKinnon is more deserving than Kucherov.
Yeah, probably.
When you look at what McKinnon has done,
Kucherov's been just as elite. But anyways, I think like my takeaway from that was Matthews snubbed, which maybe means that he's not really in the conversation when it comes to the Ted Lindsay, which is the best player in the game voted upon by your peers, which to me is actually the ultimate respect and the ultimate trophy to get. The Hart's cool, but I think to me, the Ted Lindsay is probably one that would be more meaningful if I were a player, as opposed to getting voted as the most valuable by the media. Cool. But by your peers, by the fellow players, that to me would mean a lot more. And doesn't look like Matthews is gonna get that type of respect this year, unfortunately. All right, let's take one more break. Let's come back. Let's get into this Arizona Coyotes relocation report. We'll get to that on the other side. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to the game as it gets closer to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can get last-minute ticket deals, save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, any events that you wish to attend. They got flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing. This was great. I went to a Jays game today, and I saw $25. That was the all-in price. Fees, processing fees, taxes, everything. I knew exactly how much it was going to cost me right from looking at the tickets, and it was great. You get the lowest price guarantee or the game time. We'll credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. And boy, I am glad that we are the host of Locked On Leafs and not the Locked On Coyotes, because I am much more enjoying the rhetoric around what's going on with Toronto, the fact that they're playing some really good, consistent hockey that looks like it might translate towards the playoffs. Could they go on a run this year? Could this be the season where Toronto, goes on that run, the success, the chase for 70? There's so much going on in Toronto. The positivity is off the charts. Can't say the same for the Arizona Coyotes.
It's getting to the point where the fatigue, I think, is just getting to everybody. And like, you feel pity for those in Arizona. Like, I truly feel pity for fans in Arizona, people who work for the organization. I have zero pity for the position the league is in and for the ownership group of the Coyotes itself.
Yeah. So before we kind of dive in and give our thoughts on the situation, do you want to discuss the report that we found today and kind of what the situation is and why we now believe that there's a good chance that Arizona will be relocated fairly soon?
Yeah. So initially this morning, Frank Sarvalli, Daily Faceoff, reported that the NHL was doing two different schedules. One where the Coyotes were in Arizona, and the other one with them in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, oh, like that's the first we'd ever heard of them and Utah being used in the same sentence. People I've heard it say, oh, maybe they should just move the team to Utah because there's an ownership group that really wants to bring a team to Utah.
Well, when we spoke on Arizona, talked about or they were talking about possibly Utah as an expansion team.
Yeah.
We were like, nah, just relocate Arizona, please. Like, put this whole thing to bed. Take a team that's not doing anything, that's losing money for the league, and an owner that doesn't seem to want to invest in the product, and move that to a different city to an owner who might be willing to do it. And I personally think that they were listening. And that's exactly what is about to happen, Dave.
Yeah, so Ollie Freeman reported that the Coyotes and NHL are preparing for the possibility of a move to Utah as soon as April 18th. It shows you how quick things are.
Pretty much the day after the regular season ends.
Yeah, I think it's a day or two after their final regular season game. So basically, the NHL is working to be as a broker where the Coyotes get sold to the NHL for $1 billion. That's just crazy. And then the NHL would then sell the Coyotes to the ownership group that's led by the Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith for $1.2 billion. Again, crazy. I guess that will also include relocation on top of the sale price as well. And I guess a lot of people are confused because the Coyotes are like, well, June 27th, we're going to put an auction in for land to build an arena.
Mm-hmm.
But that arena wouldn't happen for another 3 years. So that means another 3 years in a college rink, which the NHL does not want. To the Scottsdale mayor, who is kind of in the borderline of where this land is going to be, he's like, well, you can go and build something there, but don't expect us to actually give you any resources like water, hydro. That ain't happening. We're not signing off on that. So I do think that what the NHL is considering here, and the Ellie Freeman comment brought this up, is you relocate the Coyotes, they go to Utah, they're going to be playing in a actual stadium that can hold over 10,000 people. I think it's 11,000 for hockey, but they can add more seats to it. And then the Utah group already has approval for a new arena that's going to be built. So there's going to be a brand new spanking arena there for the basketball team and the NHL team. And Freeman said that what will help the NHL get this done with the Coyotes is kind of promising Morello, who is the owner of the Coyotes, that he would get first dibs on bringing a franchise back to Arizona in a 5-year period. That way there, he's not going to try to go to court against the league and the owners for making this move, which I don't understand why exactly the NHL is doing anything to give. I mean, this is where now we're getting into the rant part of it. Why the NHL is working so hard with this owner. Like, basically say you've had how many years to figure this out? Like, done. It's not
Look,
like at some point the NHL's got to cut. Like, almost like when you're a parent giving your kid money because they're struggling and going to mom and dad for help.
Yeah.
This is where you have to say, we're cutting off the piggy bank. Enough is enough.
Yeah. Which clearly is where the NHL is at right now. Like, it's like Bettman, this has been his baby. He's tried to make this work for so long, and I think he's just realizing it's just not. And it's not that like Alex Murillo is the worst and that he's not even doing anything to help his franchise or anything like that, but he's also, they're like, this city's not helping either. So
No,
it's kind of a
none of the
double
cities.
whammy. Like,
Glendale. Well, Glendale got screwed because they weren't paying their rent and stuff and got away with that. Tempe didn't want them. Phoenix doesn't want them. Scottsdale doesn't want them. They're running out of cities in that state to go to.
Exactly. So like it's kind of a double whammy there where it's just not working out for many reasons. What's wild to me is what the NHL is willing to buy the franchise for is insane to me. To spend $1 billion on this franchise is quite sickening, because Alex Murillo bought this team from the NHL, from the National Hockey League in 2019 for $300 million. 5 years later, he's selling it back to the NHL for $1 billion. $1 billion. Now, the NHL has a buyer lined up, obviously, right? We do know that there's a buyer lined up. This group out in Utah. So the NHL is not losing money. They're actually going to make $300,000, which is basically a relocation fee that they're making off of it, but they're just going to broker the deal and it's going to be split amongst all the teams. But the fact that, you're showing it right here. The Coyotes bought an arena.
J-Fresh Hockey, give him a shout out for this tweet.
Yeah, bought the team for $300 million and just embarrassed themselves left, right, and center for 5 years, and then now are just going to sell it for $1 billion. Like, hell of an investment for Alex Murillo, ultimately. So why the hell he would, and he gets an opportunity to potentially buy back into the NHL in 5 years? Like, holy smokes, this is just ridiculous.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain. He knew exactly what was. Oh, he didn't know exactly what he was saying, because he would have been
talk about like getting your cake and eating it too. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to get top dollar for the Coyotes and then also be given first dibs to bring a team back. Right. So
the worst part is, remember what the expansion, I don't know if it's going to go up from the time. Remember what the Kraken paid for an expansion fee? $650 million.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it even goes up just a little bit. Morello's still coming out ahead in all this. That's crazy.
Probably.
Although he does have to build an arena. So good luck to you, sir, on that one.
Yeah, that'll be expensive. But so that's kind of the latest there with the Arizona Coyotes. At least to bring this back to the Leafs, we can thank Gary and we can thank the Phoenix Coyotes, because it was the Phoenix Coyotes that Austin grew up watching, for Auston Matthews and Matthew Nyes. Right? If it wasn't for hockey in the desert, I don't think Auston Matthews would have. He's said it, like he was a baseball guy, grew up a baseball guy.
He was going to be a baseball player.
Yeah, like his father was a baseball player. He woke up, or he went to a Coyotes game in Phoenix, fell in love with the sport, wanted to play it, and became what's looking to be the greatest goal scorer of all time. So we can thank Gary and we can thank Arizona for producing this specimen that is Auston Matthews for the Maple Leafs, but you can go now. Now it's okay. You can step aside, and this team is going to probably end up in Salt Lake next season. And yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll see. I think they keep the team name too.
Yeah, they were asking the Discord. So I think it was Blue that was asking if there are coyotes in Utah. I did a quick search. Yes, there are quite a colony of a pack of coyotes in Utah. So good chance maybe they keep that. Although maybe you want to take yourself away from that coyotes not moniker. Maybe it's got some bad voodoo with it.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, definitely a story to be keeping an eye on over the course of the next few days. What's wild is today is what the 11th. A week from now, we could be talking about this sale going through and the end of Arizona within the next week. That's how quick this could potentially come down, which is actually insane. We were talking about a $1 billion sale, which means this has been in the works. This has been in the works. $1 billion sale does not get pushed through in 1 week. So, which means they're pretty sure it's going to go through, and they're probably at like the 5-yard line at this point, and that's why they're making 2 schedules, because they're like, well, we kind of know this is going to end up happening, so we might as well make a schedule for Salt Lake, and yeah, so that'll be interesting to see what ends up happening there. All right. Anything you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to say before we bid adieu for the day?
No, I don't even want to give Gary Bettman any credit, but
we can thank him for Auston.
We can only thank him for 2 things that have gone right. Well, that have been worked out from the Arizona Coyotes disaster debacle, and Shane Doan, because Shane Doan's with the Leafs too.
Yeah, but Shane Doan was a Winnipeg Jet. Technically, Shane Doan was a Winnipeg Jet, not a Coyote, a Winnipeg Jet.
I'll give you that.
Just happened to play there once upon a time. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs pod on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content Monday through Friday, including up on YouTube. You can follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at _Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow to break down tonight's game. Leafs Devils, 7:00 down at Scotiabank Arena. Go Leafs, go! Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.